Welcome aboard the USS Aeronome. To become a member of our crew, please visit perfectorganism.com/support. As a patron of Perfect Organism, you'll receive exclusive perks and early access to content. Incoming audio transmission received. Please proceed to Subdeck 3 to begin playback. Thank you, and welcome aboard.
Doc, I think we ought to discuss the bonus situation.
Right.
Brett and I, we think we deserve full shares, right, baby?
You see, Mr. Park and I feel that the bonus situation is good.
Move! Get out of there!
Don't you move! Dad! Move, Dad! Move, Dad! Get out!
Welcome to Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast. I am your host, Jaime Prater. Today, we are here to speak to Randy Falk. He is the VP and Senior Creative Director at Neca. This is an interview we've been looking forward to for a long time. My co-host and creative partner, Patrick, could not be here tonight. He's dealing with some emergency family issues. He sent his well wishes and a few questions. So, Randy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yes, us too. I just want to kind of jump right in. As I described your title at Neca, what does that mean? How does that play itself out at Neca?
Sure. Basically, I oversee all the development for every one of our action figures. So from initial concept, design, articulation, features, accessories, in many cases, character selection. Certainly it's appropriate in the worlds of Alien and Predator as we try to, keep those lines very diverse and pull from all the expanded universe. So we don't limit ourselves to the theatrical films. We're looking at the video games, the publishing, the old Kenner toys, just whatever we can mine from just to keep the line fresh and interesting. And that's something that's been key to the success of both those lines, is really orchestrating that from the start, knowing that we want to mix it up. And certainly if there's like a current film or a current game release, there may be a focus or initiative for those things at that time, an anniversary year, things of that nature. But otherwise, we try to spice it up, mix up the series and the contents. So I work with all the sculptors, with the licensors, in this case, 20th Century Fox, on the entire development, from concept, sculpt, design, accessories, paint, packaging, all the way through production and manufacturing till it's on the shelf.
Wow. So before we get into that a little bit more, how did you find your way to Neca?
So I've always been a toy collector and toy junkie since the 70s, really. My first action figures were Mego toys, the 8-inch Mego line, superheroes in the mid-70s. I then graduated to Kenner Star Wars and G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, and just kind of followed that progression. I never stopped collecting toys or being interested in toys. As I got older, customizing, kit bashing, making figures that, I can remember in college making my own Crow figure, like before there even was a Crow movie, but just from the comics and stuff like that. So always had an interest in it. In the mid-90s, about the time I graduated college, McFarlane Toys had gotten their start, and they really were taking it to a whole nother level where toys were always geared towards kids and simple and not detailed and didn't have a lot of paint operations. Everything was kind of dumbed down and simplified, and they were really bringing toys to a new, exciting place. And I found out that the design studio for McFarlane Toys was based in New Jersey, which is where I still reside and was born and raised. I focused all my efforts on getting a foot in the door there, and that's where I cut my teeth in the industry and learned about sculpting and licensing and really all of the whole entire process of what goes on, and worked on Kiss and Movie Maniacs and all the professional sports, all the licenses that McFarlane had. So I spent a few years there, learning all I could, and then they were going more mainstream and doing more, really more and more sports, which wasn't my thing. I'm a creature and monster guy. I love the horror movies, the slasher movies, and certainly stuff like Alien, Predator, RoboCop, Terminator. And when I started there, that was probably 70% of what we did. And then the other 30% was probably like Spawn and Image Comics. After a few years, that was like less than 50% of what we did. And it was, sports and other things that I wasn't necessarily into. So when work wasn't fun anymore, it was time to, find a way to make it fun again. And that's what happened.
We approached this interview with you knowing that there are, of course, hundreds of thousands of people who purchased the Alien line. It's fairly popular. I would say fairly is an underestimate. More than fairly popular. It's very popular. Everyone's always waiting for the next release or the next announcement. I know whether it's Alien or Alien 3 or whatever in between, I know you guys are working on, or you've released a line of figures or a homage to the Kenner toys, which are awesome. Which we know people just have a really great place in their heart. The commercial, Alien, it's so interesting because you have these very adult movies that kids can't see, but they have a very kid-friendly line. And everyone remembers that. Everyone remembers those commercials. We've shared a couple on our social media and they've blown up. It's something it's everlasting. It's really, really interesting.
To interrupt you for a second, that you bring that up, and if people haven't seen it, we'll get you a link to it. Some of the fans and collector community have made their own commercials, modern commercials, like in homage to those old Kenner commercials from the 90s with our toys. There's a guy, I think he was a film student, and he did, maybe his sister or a relative acts, and they do a whole thing with Newt and Ripley, and they've made like modern commercials as if they could play, during afternoon television, and they're fantastic. They are on YouTube, and it's the coolest thing in the world for us to see, because obviously, we don't have that kind of a budget and aren't doing television commercials, and there's hardly, kids programming like that. Like you and I, we come home from school, we'd put on the TV, have our snack, and watch whatever, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, take your pick. It's not like that anymore, But those days are not forgotten, and to see like the fans create their own commercials using our toys like that, it's a blast. Like we just sit there geeking out at that thing. Oh man, this is so cool. We wish we could run spots like that,
Aliens.
Watch out, Ripley! You're entering the hive. Use it with your pulse rifle. Oh no, Ripley! It's the mama! And she's big. Get away from her, you witch!
That is awesome. In terms of planning for new lines, new figures, maybe one-offs or a series, where does that begin with you guys?
Well, it starts out trying to balance how many releases we think we can produce and manufacture within a calendar year. Certainly the last couple years, that's been more challenging since none of our team can be in China and working on the manufacturing directly. So that tends to slow things down a bit. And then there's other things that come into play. We were celebrating the 40th anniversary of Alien, and really that's been going on for about 2 years, because actually, ironically, right today is let me do my math real quick. It's the 42nd anniversary of Alien as we record this. So for about 2 years, we've been doing this line. It's taken a while to get it out there. Part of it was COVID and not being able to, be in China and be hands-on with, with our vendors there. Another part is all the talent rights. As some people may or may not know, 20th Century Fox as a studio does not have the likeness rights to all of the actors as they appear, and it varies from film to film. And they have rights to some, not to others. So in the case of Alien, while it's taken a long time to do the whole crew, that's because we had to work with those families or the estates if they've passed, and also in some cases, unfortunately, the passing or demise of some of these great actors has been relatively recent. Ian Holm, for example, John Hurt. we certainly never want what we're doing to seem like exploitive or anything like that, so we want to pay tribute and homage to their role and the great job they did as actors, but let that time pass, so it's an honor, a memoriam, a tribute to, and it's really great now to see that we have all the principal cast, which has never been done. I mean, here we are 42 years, and there's been model kits and figures and statues and you name it, but we are the only company that's done every Kane and Ash and Lambert, Dallas, Ripley, Brett, Parker. Like we got them all, and it took a great deal of time, as it did with Aliens, as we were adding Marines and Carter Burke and just all sorts of different things to the line. That's part of it. So some of it's acquiring talent rights and figuring out when we can slot those in, and again trying to balance, like we wanted to do this anniversary line, and the anniversary line also we have challenges of balancing our retail commitments, right? So we have very successful programs at Target and at Walmart, but we also want to offer something to our mom and pops, our specialty guys that have been through thick and thin with us, from day one. So with the anniversary line, we tried to carve it out and have like an assortment that went to Target, an assortment that went to Walmart, and an assortment that didn't go there and only went to the specialty guys. And we tried to balance that in the, when we did Brett and Parker, which were two figures we never did before, those went to the hobby market, to the specialty market. So they were more accessible, easier to get. You didn't have people like scalping them and whatever, and people could order them online easier and stuff like that. So it's a combination of a lot of things, retail commitment, licensing, acquisitions, approvals, and we're at a time where there's a bit of a transition because there's no film currently coming. Some people probably know Disney purchased Fox, so there's a little bit of transition there. The comics and the publishing side are no longer with Dark Horse, which is a huge game changer because that's, a 30 plus year history. And on the exciting front, at the end of last year, they announced a television show that's in development. So certainly our interest is piqued and we want to know what's happening there, and certainly want to support it as we have every, fresh iteration and take on the franchise. And there's an exciting new game in the works that we've seen some footage from and a little gameplay. So we're watching that as well. And then again, trying that, okay, we want to do some stuff from the game, but we also have some Kenner stuff we want to do, and then at the same time going back to the films and checking off the stuff that, okay, we haven't gotten to, Drake yet, or can we do some of the Nostromo crew in like the regular, like sort of civilian clothes or ship clothes rather than the compression suits and stuff. So there's always stuff we want to get to, and we chip away at it and then slot it in where it fits. But if like something happens with the television show and we're able to be a part of that, then that will become, the primary initiative, so we can try to have product out when the show launches. But at this point, it's all hypothetical. We don't know anything about the show other than the announcement that was made last November, December at that shareholders thing. And there's, great excitement and interest in what that's going to be. So I hope we can be a part of that too.
How does the license for the IP work with Neca? Is it consecutive? Do you have to renegotiate? Did you have to renegotiate during the transition from Fox to Disney? Even more so in terms of artists and their likeness. I mean, I don't know the specific history on this fact, but from what I was told, Sigourney Weaver did not license her face for a long, long, long time, but has recently done that. Is that licensing something that it's a contract made for 5 years and then you have to renegotiate? How does that work?
The typical licensing deal with a studio, be it Warner Brothers, Disney, Fox, what have you, typically the licenses are usually a 2 to 3 year deal, and then there's renewals after that if if both parties are happy and they want to keep going. As you know, with Alien, we're approaching somewhere close to 100 different figures at this team. So obviously we keep renewing and we're doing well, and we're meeting our guarantees, making great toys. People are collecting it. The fans are happy, the studio's happy, we're happy. So we keep going, and that's been great. In terms of the talent deals for actors and actresses, that's a bit different because it's time consuming to want to get to those people. And then in some cases, and you're right, historically, Sigourney was not doing that. She just, didn't want to, wasn't into it. And in some cases, if you think of how toys were thought about before, maybe you don't want a little kid running around with a figure of you and a gun, and the way people thought about toys in the 80s and probably even the first half of the 90s, you always think kids first and how they play and what the play pattern is. But really, at the late 90s and certainly through the 2000s, toys are way more accepted as, a collectible, and a collectible for adults. It's become sort of a status symbol, a pop culture like milestone now, to have yourself done as an action figure. And you certainly see, many different people from film, promote their figures on talk show appearances and stuff. And it can be anything from the Marvel universe to we had, like, Uma Thurman had her Kill Bill figure on Conan O'Brien once, which we had done, which was, super cool. So it's become more of a thing, that stigma of, like, a bunch of, like, nerds living in the basement, all that. It's kind of gone. The 40-year-old virgin crap has kind of gone away, and really, like, geeks become mainstream, So I think people understand and accept toys as an art form more, and certainly as a collector market. And I don't know if that was the case with Sigourney specifically or with some of the other talent, but I think as time has gone on, it's become more mainstream and more respected and understood. And then it's also an interesting thing, for some of the talent involved, where once, not everyone, but say 90% of the people have said yes and are doing it. We have Rico Ross, and we have Bill Paxton and Michael Biehn and Lance Henriksen, and it kind of makes sense for the other people to say, "Oh, I don't want to be left out. Like, this was fun, and being in this movie was great." And the fact that 30 some odd years later, people still love these characters and want a Private Vasquez and want Newt and all this stuff that no one had ever done. They recognize and they want to give back to the fans. A lot of the actors that do conventions and do signings, they hear from the fans, like, you should do a toy, or I want a figure of you. And, that stuff matters to them. We work on a lot of different brands, and I know with, anything from Predator, Alien, Ninja Turtles is another one where we've had to get talent rights. And you see people, Judith Hoag, who played April O'Neil in the original Turtles film, has, like, embraced it and done, like, a little, documentary feature. People want this stuff. And while it was one role she played in a 30+ year career, it matters to, like, generations of, collectors, consumers, fans. And it's cool that, talent has embraced that and not turned away from it, and kind of celebrate it. I know Carrie Henn, who we did a bunch of stuff with for Newt, she signs her figures all the time and loves that we did Newt, and we did Newt with Ripley. And, Paul Reiser was a crazy, like, random thing where I knew somebody involved in comedy, and he said, I can put you in touch with Paul. And Paul was like, who wants a figure of me? What am I going to come with? A pencil? Like, I'm the corporate bad guy. And, I said, listen, like, people want, like, you were a SOB. People hated you, man. Like, who are they going to feed to the xenomorphs? We got to get Carter Burke in there, and I got to go meet with him and talk to him about it. And, we were able to do that figure, which is like, who would have ever thought that would happen, and you can reenact Mad About You episodes now even. So it's it was cool. Sometimes just things happen like that. It's a process though. There's some talent rights that we had tried to get before and couldn't, and then things change. We tried for a long time to get Sergeant Apone, Al, his name escapes me at the moment, unsuccessful. There's just sometimes you can't reach them, or they don't want to do it, or but we've got a pretty good batting average, and when you look at everyone we've gotten into that line over the last several years, it's pretty impressive and comprehensive. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. I grew up loving those first two films, and I still do. I think they're, perfect movies that are completely different, but equally fantastic. And I never, ever tire of watching them. And I feel lucky to work on this stuff and to give collectors this, universe and all these different xenomorphs along with the humans as well.
Yeah, the variety has been great, not only with the films and the characters in the xenomorphs, but the one-offs that you guys do based off concepts that you release. Some things that you don't see in the film, maybe you've seen in a comic, or say Tristan Jones. I know there was a line of xenomorphs created in the likeness that he draws them, which he's an incredible artist.
And we have him doing a bunch of Predator packaging art for us currently. We have an ongoing relationship with him. But yeah, he's a fantastic artist, and his work on Alien for Dark Horse was spectacular. So
yeah, we've had him on the show before.
Yeah, he's great. You can't go wrong with what he's doing.
Oh yeah, I think that Tristan, in terms of the type of work he does, he gets that creature in a way very few people do, and it's terrifying every time you can't stop looking at it. I mean, by this point, the creature itself is so interesting in that it's like a spider where you're terrified of it, but you can't stop looking at it. And each time you see a new image of it, yes, you've seen it before, but it's still just as terrifying. And whatever he does brings that out, which leads me to my question in terms of a new line or a new figure. What starts? Obviously, we're in the 35th anniversary year of Alien, so it makes sense that you guys are like, okay, what are we going to release for that? But in general, is it ever a time where the studio comes to you and says, hey, we'd like you to do this? Or is it you always saying, well, what do we want to do next? What are people asking for?
If there's not a tentpole release, like a current film, a big video game launch, it is generally left up to us to sort of come up with a line list that we think is a good balance and that collectors are going to want. Occasionally we'll hear from the studio, or a studio will hear from an important retail partner, because the studios deal with the bigger retailers too. So maybe there'll be a case where they say, oh, GameStop wants this or Target wants that, stuff like that. So that does happen sometimes, and we try to, if it makes sense, from a business standpoint, and it's not going to piss off collectors, like it's going to be accessible and they're going to be able to get it, and we're putting out something that that people want, or like if we're going to re-release something that there is demand for it still. Like we've had to go back and make the Queen several times. Either people come to the line late, or missed her, or want that figure again. But I don't like to reprint or rerun a lot of the same figures as time goes on, because it just takes up slots in the pipeline where we could be getting something new and fresh out there. But when there's stuff that the fans want or missed, like the Power Loader or the Queen, we will bring it back from time to time. And certainly during anniversary years, it's more important to have those items out there. At this point, we're looking at what's going on with Fire Team, which looks pretty exciting. There's some diverse, different xenomorphs in there that we've never done as figures before. So that's something that we definitely have our eye on and want to explore. And I would imagine it won't be too long, hopefully, before we start to know more about the TV show, and hopefully that would be part of next year. We have a bunch of new figures done, some from the Kenner universe. I teased a Panther a little while back. So we are continuing that as well, which is a lot of fun, because those are, a chance for us to sort of play a little bit, because the designs are there from what Kenner did, but like pushing that detail, and it's not really creating our own, but putting our own influence into it, because there's just so much more there in our sculpts versus what Kenner did. So stuff like the Panther and the Cougar. We've had a great success with the Rhino in the last year, which is a bigger Kenner figure we've done. I'd love to get to the Flying Queen. So we always develop Kenner and then slot it in where it fits in between, stuff like the game, the anniversary stuff for the movies, and again, knowing that the show is in development. So that'll be hopefully the next thing we get to take a stab at. Now that would be sort of a different thing, right? Because you asked about licensing. We have, a current deal that it really includes everything to date. But, if there's a new movie or a new show, sometimes that involves an additional license. Either it's a separate license or it's an additional financial commitment on our side to secure those rights. If it's something new, the studio would have the right to say, oh, we're going to try something new or go shop this around or whatever, And as they've tried some different things. There's some less, let's say, less collector-oriented Alien stuff that's out there at Walmart. Lower price, simpler things, more geared towards like little kids. If it works, it's cool. It gets them hooked at a young age, and then maybe they become customers of ours as they get older and want something more detailed and more accurate. I think what we've done with the line is sort of the benchmark at this point, and we have a lot of cool stuff still to come. We've been playing a little close to the vest and haven't shown a lot of new stuff lately, a few teases here and there, but there really is a lot in the pipeline. I would say just this week alone, we submitted 4 new, brand new xenomorphs to Fox for final approval. They're final sculpts with all the articulation and all the detail and everything in place. So, if all that stuff gets approved, we probably would show it in July, because honestly, our timing was still based around those big milestone events every year, like in February, New York Toy Fair, and in July, San Diego Comic-Con. So there won't be Comic-Con, but we will still have announcements and reveals during that timing. And that's kind of what we were leading up to, with a minimum of 4, maybe 6 new Alien figures to announce. And, they would have been on display in a diorama and a full, the whole kit and caboodle in San Diego had, Con's been possible again this year. But we'll virtually share all that stuff and have a lot of new figures to show you guys real soon. I think the fans will be pleased, because they're different footprints, different body types, different color schemes. I can't give too much away, but it certainly is fresh. And we put a checklist out every year, right around the holidays, sort of a visual guide that shows every figure we've released to date. And it's always fun to add to that and see how the line has grown and what we've expanded, and of course the different colors and body types and stuff, like the Queen Facehugger or Genocide, the red xenomorphs from the Dark Horse books, and just a lot of fun Mantis Alien, Gorilla Alien, just crazy stuff that we've been able to put into the line.
I loved the Alien 3 line you guys came out with the dog and the actual dog, and just that whole setup. It was really, I've seen some of those props, the dog prop at Studio ADI. As usual, you guys really captured the essence of that film, the very dark, the very, it was just a great, and of course Ripley and her bald head, and the Weyland-Yutani
Commandos,
soldiers.
I love that design. I love, and it's one of those things, like, you barely see it, but they just look so cool, and I always wanted to get those out there, so I was really psyched that we got to do those. And I love like troop builder type of things, like your stormtroopers or your Cobra soldiers and that kind of stuff. Like, I grew up with that, an army building those type of characters, to have like the Weyland-Yutani Commando was a huge a huge one for me. It's one I was really happy about.
Yeah, I love it. And it's also, the design is a homage to the original suit from Alien, which, so the tie-in is great. Let's just take one figure. Let's say Vasquez. From inception, obviously you know what she looks like, you know what you want to do. Who sculpts that? What's that process like for one figure, and where does it go? Like, what's the line?
Sure. In the case of Vasquez and really a lot of the females, we tend to lean on some of our female sculptors more, just because they can capture the sort of softness and beauty that a woman has versus a man. Men's features just tend to be, harsher and rougher, and we're not necessarily pleasant to look at. Where women, it's harder to capture. Women and kids are the hardest things to sculpt, just because everything is softer and more subdued. There's a lot more subtlety. So in the case of Vasquez and Ripley and some of the others, we have a very talented female artist named Adrian Smith. And she was the first one that I turned to, in creating Vasquez, and said, hey, listen, this is the plan. We got the rights to Jeanette as Vasquez, and we're going to do a couple figures with this because she has like the BDUs, but then she has the Smart Gunner outfit, and we want to, get a few plays out of this because she's such a great iconic character and such just such a badass. And so that's where it started. So we come up with a plan that I give to Adrian that says, like, here's the initial version, sculptor in the tank top, and then we're going to add on, the tactical gear, the vest. At the same time, we have a fabrication team that works on all the accessories. So we have model makers that are making the smart gun, the harness, the knife, pulse rifle, anything else that she would come with that's from sort of a mechanical point of view. It's not sculpted in clay or wax, but it's more machined. Nowadays, a lot of that stuff's done digital. We do a mix of digital and traditional with the accessories, and all the Alien stuff at the time was built traditional. So it's model makers with like ABS plastic, styrene, Ren, cutting and carving and fabricating all of those pieces simultaneously while Adrian is sculpting the actual wax figure. In an ideal world, the accessories are done at the same time or a little ahead of time, so then we can hand them off to Adrian so she can adjust hand position, finger position. If we have gun holding hand, you want the finger on the trigger, a knife holding hand, working out all the play pattern and the way the character needs to interact with the accessories. That process can take, on average, 4 to 6 weeks. I think Vasquez maybe took a little bit longer, but that's because, one, we were doing the multiple versions all at once, like knowing we were going to do like a Kenner version of her, the BDU version, and the Smart Gunner version, and to the Smart Gunner gun and contraption with the hinges. It's pretty complex. So getting all that worked out took a little bit longer. So that whole thing might have taken about 2 months to prototype. And then when everything's done, we show it to Jeanette, in this case, for approval. Often when the talent grants their rights, they have at minimum consultation, if not absolute approval on what we're doing. They want to see it and have their say, make sure it looks like them and is accurate and flattering. And once that's approved, then we show it to 20th Century Fox. Say, here's a prototype of Vasquez, approved by Jeanette Goldstein, and we provide the documentation of that approval and that we had secured her rights and everything like that. And once that happens, we start doing our paint master. So we'll make a mold of the sculpt and of the weapons, and then paint up the prototypes, and then get those ready to ship to China to begin the tooling process. And that's really where manufacturing steel molds are created, and then injection molded plastic is extruded from those molds to make a posable action figure. So the whole process from start to finish, you said from inception of getting her rights and then sculpting approval, everything like that, is probably about 9 or 10 months from when we started to when it was on shelf.
Wow, that's not that long. That's fantastic.
It's probably longer now in a COVID world, but that's probably what it was then. You know, we generally have about a 7 to 9 month turnaround. That was our average for a long time. Everything's taken longer in the last year and a half for obvious reasons, and it's not even just the manufacturing, even like shipping. If people follow the news and current events, there's been like record numbers of containers coming into the ports. It's taking longer for this stuff to get cleared, unloaded, put on a train, brought to a store, and of course, essential goods. Certainly when we're in the height of the pandemic, anything that was non-essential takes a back seat. Obviously, it's more important that people get their PPE and their sanitizer and their food and medicine and those things, and toys and all that kind of stuff can wait. It's starting to turn a corner. I think things will get back to normal certainly by next year, but typically that's we always compare it to having a baby. It's like that 9-month cycle. We're baking our little plastic figure babies and getting them ready for a shelf.
Yeah. As an aside, I don't know if you've read all 3 issues that are available from Marvel. Their new Alien issue. It's not their 35th anniversary, but they've introduced an alpha, which is kind of like a king, I think. Maybe not, but it's got a very specific head that's crowned a little bit, but it looks a little bit like the big chap still. It keeps that architecture in place. Will you guys be doing anything with that?
I don't know yet. I mean, we've supported publishing in the past, and so far the sales on the books and stuff have been strong, and there's Predator books happening as well. So probably we will look that way. I think we're kind of waiting to see what stands out, and what's like with Dark Horse. It was so much easier just because that history was there, right? We had literally 30 years to pull from, and they always carried the torch when there wasn't necessarily films happening or in between all the films, and wrote some great stories. So we knew that history was there. It's always easier to go back. It's like risky, like, as you know, we do a lot of different licenses, and when you do something that's current or new, there's where the risk is, because you don't know if it's going to take off or resonate with the fans. When we're doing our classic legacy stuff like Alien, Predator, Gremlins, Terminator, all that, what works, and what's good and what fans want, because we kind of grew up with it all. With what Marvel's doing, I think we want to take a look at it, certainly, and we are all about supporting the franchise in every form. But we haven't dipped our toe into that pool just yet. But we'll see, as the books grow, like what is resonating with the fans and what they want to see. And again, it's that balance, because we have people that have been waiting for us to do like a Praetorian and other things that are just super cool and have that 20 plus year fandom behind them. Or like, when's NECA doing this? When's NECA? We want to get to that stuff too, and don't want to look like we're jumping on the on the bandwagon for like the newest thing, which may not be the best thing, but we're certainly going to look at it for sure. I haven't had a chance to I've seen the art, and I've certainly seen all the covers. I haven't had a chance to read them yet, but I do have them, and they're on my to-do list.
Let me ask you this, and then I'm going to pivot into some questions that Patrick submitted, and then we can kind of wrap up. And I don't know if this is a thing in terms of production and making figures, but has there been a figure in the Alien line that's been like, how do we do this? And it's taken longer, where it's something that was really challenging. And I would imagine maybe the more parts there are, for instance, the Queen, she's huge and she's amazing. I actually don't own her, but I don't own a lot of your figures. I do like specific ones, but I think I'm going to get the Queen and the Power Loader. But I would imagine a figure that size, it's 4 times the size of a normal NECA figure. What kind of challenges does that provide?
Price is really a big thing, because generally we've tried to, for the longest time, we were price points of $20 to $25. Now in the last 2 years, it's probably more like $30. Something like the Queen really necessitates being like $100, and that's a big ask, because we try to be as affordable and as accessible as possible. Certainly there's people out there, companies, competitors, whatever, doing higher end expensive stuff. And that's great, but not everyone has that disposable income or that kind of money. Or if they're a fan, they're really going to pick one, maybe two releases in an entire year that they can actually have the space for and have that kind of money to spend. Whereas we try to maintain a more affordable price point so people can collect the line. Certainly there's some people that are completists, but if you only like Alien 3, we want to make it so you can get everything from Alien 3. You can get the brown version of the Queen that ADI, had sort of redone. You can get, we did an accessory pack. We did Ripley and, like you said, the Commandos and the different, the dog and different, improved the articulation as time went on, So we want to make it so everyone can collect it and afford it. The Queen took a while for us to get to because we're like, well, is the fan base big enough? And then where are we going to put it? Because certainly back when she came out, Toys R Us was still a thing. They were like our biggest retail partner at the time. And it was like, well, it takes up a lot of shelf space. And sometimes the retailers don't want that. They don't want to give up the space, or they don't want to give up the space for $100 item that's going to take longer to turn over. They'd rather have a bunch of $30 or $25 items that turn over much quicker. And that's a challenge, because then it's like, well, people say, oh, then, sell it direct or just put it on the web. And it's like, well, that's a possibility, but it's not always the best. Just someone then has to know it exists in the first place. Like, you're not getting anyone finding it fresh. We've had, and certainly when we were doing Godzilla, saw a lot of this where people would just impulse buy. Someone's in a store, they walk by an end cap at a Toys R Us or now Target, and they see this kick-ass, cool, super posable, super detailed figure for $25, and they just buy it. And then they find out, oh wow, they make this and they make that, and it opens the door. And I think that's one of the things that is important about our retail presence and why we've done well at Target and Walmart in these last couple of years, is that we're reaching a bigger, broader audience. I think a lot of collectors become so focused on themselves and how they collect, they forget that in the grand scheme of things, it's still a business and it still has to be profitable. And we certainly want to service the collectors, but collectors get older, they have families, they have other responsibilities. A pandemic happens, maybe they can't buy as much stuff. We got to get new people interested to keep it going and get a new generation or new audience engaged, whether it's the video games that do it or what Marvel's doing. We need to, service the entire audience so that it continues to be successful and continues to grow. So with the Queen, it was about knowing that the fan base would support a figure that expensive. And then from an engineering standpoint, it was like, okay, like you said, she's massive and they have like fairly skinny legs. It's like, how are the legs going to support this? How can we like ratchet and strengthen the joints? And maybe in the case of the Queen, we supply a display stand that has like a metal rod that you can use to help support or anchor that upper body. So if you want to have her, reared up more on the back legs and the little arms out, there's a support that holds onto the chest and keeps her standing. Figuring all that out, how the head slides back, and then of course retail packaging. Like, we want the box to look impressive, so when you say, oh, this is $100 because it's huge, but we also can't have the box be ginormous because then it takes up too much space on the shelf, or a retailer will say, oh, we can't carry that, it's too big. So but the Queens did great, and we've rerun her probably 3 different times. The fans have spoken and shown that they want. And we did a Genocide Queen and we did an Alien 3 Queen. So that's what is super cool. Like, they always say, vote with your dollar and stuff. If we made something people didn't want, then we wouldn't do it again or wouldn't do more. But the fans, we owe it all to them, because they've allowed this line to flourish and grow and get us to this milestone where we're approaching, 100 different figures. And we've been able to do, $100 items like the Queen, or an $80 item like the Power Loader. But it's super, it's super cool to do it and to see people either display them on their shelves or do stop motion with them or recreate like movie stills using the toys. When we look at all the like Instagram toy photography and all that, you see people with like, you know, Ripley and the power loader and the Queen, and then all the eggs. You know, we did eggs in like an egg carton a while back, you know, at open eggs and closed eggs and face huggers, you know, chest bursters, and to see people like display all that stuff, it's just so gratifying. You know, it's a whole team of guys that, you know, that are into this and that get excited by it. You know, anything from sculptors, designers, our painters, our graphics guys who do the packaging. Like, you know, we all get different things out of it, and we all have different films that are our favorites or characters that are our favorites. But to see how the fan base has appreciated it and supported it, and to think that we've made this many characters and have so much more to come is like a testament to how great the franchise is, and how great the fan base is, that they want good stuff out there, you know. And I think that's really cool. And that'll probably go on forever. We'll be talking about this for the 50th anniversary of Alien, you know.
For sure. Patrick is curious about the future of the 7-inch Aliens line.
Well, the 7-inch line is definitely continuing. I don't know when this will be up for, you know, for your listeners, but I would say my best guess or estimate is by the end of July, we will have announced or revealed somewhere between 4 to 6 new figures that are coming, all before the end of this year.
Okay.
And there's certainly more in 22, but the back half of this year is full of new xenomorphs that we have never done or that you have never seen before.
That's awesome. This is related because it's Ridley Scott, but like we also, me and Patrick and another partner, Dan, we run a Blade Runner podcast, and there's not a lot of stuff for Blade Runner. And how do you, I mean, I know like Alcon owns the IP, and I'm not talking specifically about Blade Runner, but is there IP that you guys would like to explore that's you're like, they're just not interested because of money and licensing and that kind of thing?
Outside of Alien, you're talking about in general?
Yeah.
Sure. So you may not know, like we did Blade Runner 2049.
Yes, you did.
And that was a very cool experience because I also love that original film. And, you know, I got to go to Budapest, maybe?
Yeah, Budapest.
It was like whirlwind. It was like, you're going to go. I immediately drove to New York, got on a plane, flew to Germany, took another plane, flew to Budapest, spent a couple days on those sets. And that is something I'll never forget, because so much of it was practical. And I think Denis is a fantastic director and has amazing vision, and I'm excited to see what he's done with Dune too. Mm-hmm. And he was so gracious and so engaging that I was like jazzed to be a part of that project. I missed meeting Harrison Ford, unfortunately, but I did see like Ryan Gosling, and got to explore props and wardrobe and get all my reference and stuff. So that was fantastic. I had hoped that it would open some doors for the original, but you know, that's been, like I said, it's complicated, and it's a licensing thing that's been around with, you know, they don't have talent rights or they aren't able to get certain parties to do it. So that's why you haven't seen it yet. I mean, anything can happen, and someday that may change, but that's why it certainly is one we'd love to do. Rutger Hauer, Sean Young, Harrison, I mean, fantastic stuff. Another one for us, man, I love Mad Max, the original stuff, and I love Fury Road. Like that movie was so much fun, and that's so, you know, it screamed action figure every second of it, everything that was on screen, you know, and Immortan Joe, and you know, I loved that thing. Like I came out of that wishing, had that feeling like you were a kid, like you saw a new movie, you're like, I want this toy, you know, I wish I could have gone out there and bought a figure and, you know, witness me, and you know, I was like super into it. Yeah. But that's one that, you know, for various reasons, you know, and I don't know what all the details, but the studio's not able to license it, and it's because I believe the director either doesn't want to do it, or they can't come to some kind of agreement about the, you know, financials or the profit splitting and how licensing is done. I'm not sure. But in general, especially with all the companies out there that are making things, collectibles, figures, statues, posters, you name it, if you don't see it, there's a reason why. The Shining is another one. Everyone wants that. Nicholson doesn't want to do it. A Jack Torrance would be awesome. But for me, I would love to do the Road Warrior Mad Max franchise for sure, if that was ever possible. And
I can already see Furiosa as a figure.
She's so great.
Yeah,
such a cool character, and such a fun, like, high energy, crazy movie. But so there's a lot of stuff out there like that just maybe someday it'll change. And there's been announcements that George Miller's doing another movie, so maybe they'll work something out. I don't know. Like, we can always hope. As certainly with Alien, like, it's been years that we've been doing it, but eventually we got Ripley and we got Ash and Kane and so on. So and it's sad too. Like, Yaphet passed away just recently too. It's like we're coming to that age now where so many of our, I don't know, heroes or actors, musicians, people that we grew up with and looked up to are dying, and that's scary. It just reminds you of your own mortality and seeing how many of, like, the principal Star Wars cast. Today's the anniversary of the original Star Wars. That's a huge reason why I fell in love with toys in the first place. Like, that Kenner line,
Oh, yeah.
And I think we've lost Leia and Chewie and R2 and Boba Fett. It's like, damn, we're getting old.
Yeah.
Movies are timeless and we can always watch them and enjoy them. But to see that happening, it's like, it's just, sad.
I'm going to throw in one question from a friend of ours. I was like, we'll see. And then I'll wrap this up. So our friend Mike Dennis asks, if now that you have Kurt Russell's likeness for The Thing, will you do a Snake Plissken figure?
Here's like an interesting piece to this whole likeness and license equation, in that you can have an actor's license or likeness for one thing, but it doesn't mean you have it for another. Like, certainly The Thing is a Universal picture. It's licensed by Universal. And yes, we have Kurt's likeness for that. Escape from New York is licensed by a different studio. And we'd have to see if we could do it. And if, let's just go a step further. If we wanted to do like Big Trouble in Little China, that's a Fox thing, but we know they don't have Kurt's rights. So then we'd have to do a separate deal with Kurt if he was willing to do it. So even though you have one, it doesn't mean you're going to get the other one. And a perfect analogy or comparison would be Carl Weathers. Years ago, we did a Rocky line, and MGM was the studio and licensor. They had Carl's rights as Apollo Creed. So it was just part of the license. They have Sylvester Stallone. They have Carl Weathers. They have Dolph Lundgren, Mr. T. So we were able to do all those characters. Predator, we don't have Carl Weathers, so we can't do it. We can't do Dylan. It doesn't translate. Different studio, different contract, different thing. So yeah. I love Kurt Russell. I am so glad we're doing Thing figures. That's another one of those movies that I grew up with. I remember the very first time I saw it, it freaked me out. I watch it at least once every year and turn the air conditioner up and just freeze myself, get that atmosphere of being locked in the Arctic. And I'm psyched that we have a McCready figure. And there's going to be more from The Thing. Everything does well, and I think it will. Our first Thing figure is out right now for Father's Day at Target, and then it will be out everywhere else in July. Hopefully there'll be more Kurt and certainly more stuff from The Thing next year.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I've seen a little bit of that, and of course you guys do amazing things, so of course it was awesome. To wrap this up, first of all, I want to say thank you for coming on the show. I know this is a long time coming. Obviously the Alien fandom is rabid about, as you can see everywhere online, when's the next thing? Everyone's always waiting to see what you guys release next. So we appreciate you taking the time to pull up the veil a little bit and talk about not just a line of toys or a line of figures that we love, but a company that we love, all of us, and that we support and that we promote and that we share. And for instance, a friend of ours named Brandon Flores, he does dioramas, and he does it a lot of exclusively with your figures, and they are amazing. I mean, they look like they're out of the film, and that's a testament to the work that you guys do. Certainly, the lighting and what he's created is amazing, but you guys have made figures that look just like the film, and that's a great thing. And that's what we want. You know, we want something that has lived within our hearts since we were kids on our shelf to remind us every day that, hey, this is what you're passionate about. This is what it's about. So we're definitely really appreciative and thankful that you guys are who you are. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and we follow Brandon on social and love what he does too.
Yeah.
And we know that the fans and your audience, they're just like us. Like, if we weren't making this stuff, we'd be buying it because we love this stuff too, you know. And I collect lots of toys from all different companies and I'm passionate about it. And, you know, it's that, like you said, it's that escape or that connection to your childhood or a movie or a character you love or can relate to for different reasons. And the toys or collectibles give you a little piece of that. You can have a shitty day or just need a distraction and just look at your shelf and it brings you some sort of inner peace or calms you down or makes you smile or you can set it up and take photos of it or whatever and customize it, whatever it is that, you know, need that it can serve for you. We're just lucky to be able to create that stuff. You know, I have no illusions. We're not changing the world or curing cancer or doing anything, you know, that matters at that level, but we bring people joy, make people happy, and because of social media and conventions and things like that, we get to see or hear firsthand how much the toys or the collectibles mean to the audience, and that's really gratifying. You know, it's not like a paycheck. It's like, we love this stuff. We love to see people collect it, enjoy it, display it, photograph it, dioramas, the whole thing. You know, we're very fortunate, and you know, I'm happy to be on your podcast and talk about the process and share it. I try to be as transparent and accessible on social media and things like that. Let people know what's going on and help keep them engaged and interested. And you know, we've been doing like Face Hugger Friday for years, where we do something new every Friday, or you know, try to have teases and celebrations or share fans' collections and fans' photos and. It's important part of it, you know, to have that sense of community. And certainly, and I think it's important always, but in the last year where there's so much isolation or stay at home or quarantine, that you can connect with people and bond over things like your love for a film or, you know, or for the toys, or, you know, it's like, you know, I'm a big music fan, and I can't even tell you how much I miss going to a concert and having that experience, that communal thing where, like, you know, the band plays a song that hasn't been in the set list in forever, or they play a song that everyone loves and the whole place is, you know, singing, and you feel the hair stand up on the back of your neck. Like, that's magic, you know, and you know, the power of music and togetherness and community. And at least the fans have been able to connect and stay engaged through, you know, through what you guys do and through social media. And the world's a much smaller place really than it was before because of all that, which is good, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Last question. When should we be looking out for something, as it is, we are in the 35th year anniversary of Aliens? What's on the horizon? And obviously I don't expect you to give me a date or whatever, but like approximately what time should we, or what day or whatever, should we be on the lookout for like a new Aliens 35th anniversary release?
Hopefully something, at least announcement or reveal, definitely later this year, okay. Probably fall. Again, you know, we wanted to get through our 40th from Alien, which continued and continued and continued, but there will be something. There's some stuff we haven't done or need to do to sort of make that line feel more complete. So hopefully, say maybe September, October, there'll be an announcement there. And before that, there'll be some other announcements from different iterations outside the films, with what I was alluding to before. We'll get to a bunch of new characters this summer that are going to be in the figure line. So I would say be watching around mid to late July, and then probably late September, early October for more announcements. We're going to keep it going and keep it exciting. And, we know, at least I think we know what the collectors want to see. And if I'm wrong, they can certainly let us know, on our Instagram or our Twitter or Facebook, whatever. But I think they're going to be really happy with what's coming down in the pipeline in the next 6 months or so.
Awesome. Randy, thank you so much for this interview, for your time. I know you're busy. I know you obviously got kids, you got a life. Thank you for talking to us, Perfect Organism, and the fans. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
For more on Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast, please visit perfectorganism.com. Perfect Organism is available for listen or download through Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, and Spotify. If you'd like to support the show, please visit perfectorganism.com/support. Thank you.